What up? What up? Welcome to Moving Quickly, and today we are quickly moving. All right, so on May 7th, 2025, the mandated enforcement of Real ID for domestic travel in the U.S. has officially began. Most local and national news outlets covered the story, giving the general public pretty much the same information. However, as someone that has traveled since Real ID has taken effect, I have two very different stories from on the ground. The first story I have, I was departing Atlanta. This was the day after Real ID had been mandated. And I typically have a travel hack for when I depart Atlanta. I typically do not travel with any checked baggage. Therefore, I can go through the screening process on the international side at the Maynard Jackson International Terminal. It's much easier. The time it takes to get through the checkpoint is normally under 10 minutes. And so on this particular occasion, I got dropped off at the airport. I walk up, I approach the checkpoint, the security checkpoint. When I approached the security checkpoint, I was greeted nicely by two TSA employees. They asked me to see my boarding pass. Now, this is going to be quite different from my trip when I departed Chicago. Okay, so I get up to the actual, checkpoint, where they ask you for either your boarding pass or your ID. I get there, I have a non-Real ID. So the ID I presented was non-Real ID compliant. I put that in the machine spits it out. The TSA agent asks me if I have a Real ID. Is this the only ID I have? Now, I do have a Real ID. I was just testing the waters. Like I said, the checkpoint at the international side of Hartsfield, fairly easy to get through. Like I said, if you're flying from Atlanta and you're not checking any bags, I suggest you do that. Once he confirmed that that was the only ID I had, he called another TSA agent over. She walked me straight to the front of the line. I cannot make this up. I walked straight to the front of the line. She asked me to take my electronics out of my book bag. I did that compliantly. Had a really good attitude. I knew what I was getting into. So, sometimes TSA could piss you off, but today I was nice. Went through the machine, the X-ray machine. And then after that, my stuff came through. I looked behind me expecting the TSA lady to be behind me. She was not there. I gathered my belongings and I took the SkyTrain to my gate. Easy, right? I mean, as much as they were saying that you would expect delays, I actually got ushered in front of like maybe 25, 30 people to the front of the line. Got to my gate, no problem. However, what they did do, they gave me a card that had, it wasn't even a card. It was like a printout, like a paper printout. And they looked like they might have cut the printout. They might have printed like 4 on one page and cut them out. So anyway, they gave me that, letting me know that I was not in compliance with Homeland Security Real ID measures, and that the next time I travel, I have to have a Real ID or I might expect delays. When I departed Chicago, totally different story. Before you even get to the checkpoint in Chicago, this is Midway, not O'Hare. So I don't know what it's like at O'Hare, but I'm talking about Midway right now. I was coming from the L. And so you enter the airport from the L on the backside. You walk across the bridge, you walk in, immediately you see the checkpoint, right? I walk up to the checkpoint. Now, even before you get anywhere near the checkpoint at Midway, they already have several TSA agents already checking people for Real ID. So they're like, have your real ID out. We need to check to see if you have real ID. Now, remind you, just a week prior in Atlanta, all I needed to get into the checkpoint area was my boarding pass. So once I already got to the agent, nobody had even checked that I had a real ID. Well, Chicago Midway, totally different. They had several agents on the ground, and they were basically checking people for real ID before you even got to the checkpoint area. All right, I didn't witness anybody who didn't have a real ID, because most people either had a real ID or they had a passport or a passport card or a military ID. So we all pretty much got ushered in, went through to the agent desk right before you actually go through the security checkpoint. Now, here's the difference about Midway than at Atlanta. So once I get through, I just scan my boarding pass. I go through, and they didn't even make me go through the x-ray machine. So I didn't have to take my shoes off, nothing like that. So I just went through the regular metal detector and went through. Only thing that I did have to do was take my electronics out. So there you have it, people. The mystery of real ID. Now, this is fairly new. This is fairly new in the game. So this is just something I'm giving you now of what to expect. Now, as the summer travel season begins to heat up over the next few weeks, they may start cracking down even more, or it might be the same. I don't know. However, just be prepared either way. If you don't have a real ID, definitely get to the airport ahead of time. My story is my story, and it may not necessarily be the same thing that you experience. But I just wanted to let you all know, because since the real ID is such a big thing going on, what my experience was and what you may expect if you don't have a real ID but you need to travel. However, what I did hear is that they are not turning anybody away for the most part. You will have to go through some other measures. Like I said, in Atlanta, the measure I went through, she walked me past 20, 30 people to the front of the line. I got in. That was that. But like I said, my story may not be your story. However, thanks for checking in. This is Moving Quickly, and we were quickly moving. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day. Peace.